Hey, welcome. Good morning. Good day to you all, wherever it is you are, morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to our TAA Cafe. This podcast is brought to you by the Reserve Component Transition Assistance Program, or RCTAA, with Reserve Component Transition Assistance located in every state and territory. We are there to provide service members and veterans with information and assistance in accessing their benefits and entitlements earned through their military service. Now, this podcast is part of our podcast series on resilience and mental health, and we are really excited today to have our special guest. My name is Daniel Leatherman. I'm the RCTAA from Hawaii, and I'm joined by my colleague Treg Butterfield, who's a RCTAA from Nevada. Guest today is James Gray. He is a motivational speaker, an MMA fighter, coach, and the owner and founder of Michigan Institute of Athletics and Scorpion Fighting Systems. He's also the host of his own podcast called The Gray Area, and you'll often find him working with veterans of all branches as well as youth, promoting a message of strength and resiliency, as well as mental and physical fitness. So James was our keynote speaker at our national RCTAA conference in 2022, where he shared his personal story of adversity and struggle, as well as his journey through it. And it's a thrill to have him here with us today. So, James, welcome. Welcome to the TAA Cafe.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, man. I really enjoyed my time out in DC with your company, and I feel like I made a tremendous impact with a lot of people. I've had so many people reach out to me. A lot of people, talk to me at the event, after the event, on social media platforms, and it was great to see how well the message was received. And I mean, it's just a topic that everybody is kind of discussing and trying to work their way through. Like getting your mental health in the correct place is one of the key components to a successful and healthy life. So I'm always glad to speak on that topic.
Oh, well, it's great to have you. Thanks so much for being with us. Now, you often carry with you this message of resilience and perseverance, and it's really an important one, especially in this time. Can you share with us some of your background and tell us what drives you to do the work that you do with both mixed martial arts, with veterans, as well as young people?
Sure. I mean, that's a very open-ended question. So I'm going to just kind of take it all the way back and I'll do like a summarized version. But basically, I had a lot of darkness in my life and in my own mind that I had to work through when I was young. I had a lot of things hit me as a child that I wasn't expecting, that kind of destroyed the stories that I believed in. So as people, we all kind of, we create stories in our mind and we live within those parameters or those boundaries or whatever it is. And that's kind of what guides you into the future. You kind of figure out what type of person you are. You figure out what your path is going to look like in this life. You figure out relationships you have with your family and friends, and like how you fit in a school setting, how you stand out in athletics. Like everybody kind of attaches themselves to stories. And when I was young, I had always been told that my mother had gotten sick and passed away, which, as a little kid, you can kind of rationalize that. Like people get sick, people can pass away. And during an argument with my cousin when I was very young, I love my cousin very dearly, so I don't mean this in a derogatory way to her, but I called her an idiot or something. I called her stupid, and we were arguing back and forth, and she said, "No, you're an idiot. You don't know your mom killed herself." And it really, it rattled me as a young child. Like I said, it was almost like, if you can imagine, I had only ever seen the world through one set of eyes, through one lens, and I had my story. Like I clearly knew like my place in the world, what happened to my mom. I thought things were kind of set. And what happened in that moment to me was, it was like, imagine somebody just shatters the world that you live in. Like all of your, the things that you grip onto for security and mental health are like, what you believe to be true. So it shattered me from a young age, and it kind of put me on a search for truth kind of as a young child. So, and even though I, was devastated by what Megan told me, in a weird way, like after the emotion settled, I wasn't angry at her because she didn't lie to me. She didn't mislead me. Like we were in a fight. It was said in a moment of anger, but she just told me the truth of the world. And like, the truth is not what I want it to be. It's what it is. And I have to make my life around that foundation, right? Like I can't distort reality. I can't distort the truth. I can only make myself a product of what my life, has done so far and what's ahead of me. So from a young age, I kind of went out on my own path and I really became obsessed with that. Well, if you hold in the foundation of your being and the foundation of your mind, the truth is like a very pinnacle thing worth achieving. You sift through a lot of nonsense. You're not really focused on how things appear, and you don't look at things on a surface level. You kind of cut through the veil and you figure out like, what is possible? What can I do? What limitations are actually here in front of me? So I think I was shaped differently as a child, and I went through, a dark period, but I kind of pulled myself back together. You can get back on track because I was very young, right? Like I didn't even get rocked by the story by my cousin until I was maybe 9 or 10. So the first woman that I fell in love with, like everybody kind of remembers like their first love or young love. Like her name was Michelle Matthews. I lived in Philadelphia, and we got a relationship off the ground, and we were together for coming up on 2 years. And my father, who had remarried, to my stepmother, wanted to move out to Michigan, and we were in Philadelphia. And now at this point, I've got my life kind of back together. I'm a teenager where you're like, man, you're trying to fit in the world. You're trying to create identity. You're trying to find like a stable, like this is who I am and this is the direction I'm going. And that's kind of what you build your comfort in. And my father told me, hey, sorry, we're going to move to Michigan with your stepmother's family. And it is what it is type deal. And, obviously as a teenager, all of my family's on the East Coast. All of my family is in Philadelphia. The girl that I'm dating, like, and she's the first person I'm really like confiding in, and, like your emotions are really wrapped up in it. And so anyway, long story short, my father moves me across the country. I became super depressed. I was barely paying attention in school. I was just really struggling. I mean, I'm a kid trying to fit in the world. And so was Michelle. She was going through really, really rough times. And she came kind of from a broken home. And about 6 months into my long distance relationship, she hung herself in this depression. So it kind of restarted the whole just downhill. Like that's truly what led me to like a real rock bottom, a real, am I going to go on? And what does that even look like? Like, what does it look like to have to, someone you love so deeply, that you value, that, you're building stability with, is now gone forever. Death is it's one of the most like, you just can't fight it. It's over. It's permanent. There's no solution. Right. It's not a problem that you can like, oh, if I just take this action or do this thing, I can change it. So it was such a reality that, again, I did not want, but I had to learn to like, it is what it is, which took many, many years. It put me to a true rock bottom. And when you hit a real rock bottom in your life where like, you don't see any light, you don't see it ever being better, you don't see pain ever subsiding, you only think that there's suffering around you. I hate to be blunt on this discussion, but there's no other way to say it. I had to get to a moment where it was like, either kill yourself or figure out how to be something in this life, like how to make this life have any meaning, how to become a man that can make a difference. Like you just hit a point where it's like, okay, if you just want the pain to stop and you just want it to be over, like this is one option. And a lot of times people don't want to talk like this because you don't want to consider those realities, but like that is a reality. That is the truth. Like you have this option, or you have, if I'm not going to give up on my life and I'm going to move forward, what can I do from this point? Like, I don't know, something happened in that time of my life where it reintroduced me to my power, which my power resides in my ability to make a difference in my life, which then has ripples outward into everything that I do. And so many times I feel like people get trapped in all these mental prisons that society places on them, that school might have placed on them, that bad relationships might have placed on them. And they're completely boxed in by all of these things in their mind, right? Like they're their own prisoner. Man, all of that went away from me because I didn't have anybody in my life. I didn't want anyone. Like it was, I don't need anybody. And it was kind of like, now I started seeing through the veil and I started being like, what can I do with myself? How
So
do I put myself in order, etc. So that's
so
like the expedited version of
wow.
part one.
Yeah. No, and what was sorry to interrupt you
No,
in this way, but it was like, I'm thinking about where you are being in that well, right? Like you said, you're rock bottom and you can't, is it a place where like you can't see any light, right? You
yeah,
can't see
100%. You don't ever
any
think it's gonna be any
sense of
better.
hope. Did you feel like you had any kind of support system? I mean, where for you was that? How did you? And like you said, maybe there isn't a way. I don't know. I
Here's the
mean,
support system that I found, man. I had
yeah,
my
go ahead.
spirit to go on. Why did my spirit want to go on? I don't know. But like I held my father to blame tremendously. My
Mm,
not to go into all the details, but like my father had cheated on my mother with my stepmother. My mother took her own life. Like, so it's, I mean, imagine mix that all up in a young teenager's brain and imagine how angry and furious and like, so I cut like every string and probably because I was struggling so bad. Like, you have to find something within, right? And then that's what I did. I found the will to go on in myself, and then almost a little bit of like, I hate to say it, like a chip on my shoulder. It was like, you know what? If I'm going to go on, I deserve to be happy. I deserve to be able to have
mm,
some quality of life. Like, what did I do in a past life that I'm just getting the shit kicked out of me for? You know what I mean? Like, some type of fire was lit in my heart once I finally decided, okay, I'm not ending this thing. I'm going to move forward. And if I'm going to move forward, I do not deserve to live in this misery and pain. Like, I know I'm a good person. I know I love and care about other people. I know I have big dreams and I have aspirations and goals. Like, why do I deserve to have to stay in this pit? And when you get that feeling, I don't know, it reignited a flame in my heart type deal
mm,
for life.
mm.
So, James, I do have a question for you. So would you say that the finding that willpower and being able to keep moving forward was that where you found the resilience to continue?
Listen,
Like,
resilience comes from darkness. One of the worst parts of this life design is your strength is found in the struggles. Your strength comes from the hardest moments in your life. Like, and we don't like that that's the reality, but that is the truth. Like, if you think about the hardest moments of your life, Treg or Dan, the times where like you didn't even know if you could get through what you were going through, the man that comes out of those experiences is strengthened beyond the point of the person that was going in might have even thought was possible. So it's like when you go through the ugliest, darkest, most difficult, most painful times, you're going to be introduced to strength that you didn't even know existed. And that's what happened. And like I said, it's a backwards design. It would almost be great if the wonderful moments in our life just made us so powerful and capable and formidable that when the darkness came, it just bounced off us because we have our things in order. It just doesn't work like that. The real way you find resiliency, character, strength is struggling. And a lot of my, like, I train professional fighters for a living. I have to tell them that, like, listen, when you run into these struggles in your life, whether it's difficult conversations you have to have, it's things related to your career, it's whatever it is, you almost have to learn to lean into the struggles and find how to develop through that process, because that will introduce you to your strength. Otherwise, one of the things that I tell children is, it's hard to say this as like a motivational guy, but like, life doesn't get easier just because you want it to. Like, okay, you're about to graduate from school and like life is going to get harder on you. It's going to get more difficult. It's going to get more painful. So what can you do? You have to find a way to level up to handle what is going to come your way. You can't just hope that things are going to be lighter. It's like it's reverse from what we probably want it to be.
And it's not that we want to seek these things out, in a way
They're
that,
gonna find you.
yeah,
Like,
they're
you
gonna
don't
find
need
us, right?
to go
This is
search
life,
for difficulty. Life
right?
will give you death in your family. Life will give you sickness. Life will give you problems. Life will give you difficult people. Life will give you circumstances that are beyond your control that you so badly wish you could make. That's coming. Like that. I'm not saying seek out danger. I'm
Right,
saying
right, yeah.
learn that you have the strength to battle through more than you could ever imagine.
yeah, and
That's such an important mantra and a way of looking at life. And I love what you said when you said resiliency comes from darkness. I mean, like I said, it's not that we have to seek it out. It happens. Life happens, right? In whatever way, shape, and form. And we are certainly are formed and shaped by these life experiences. And we, and maybe one of the big messages that we certainly want, not just in this podcast, but in the work that we do with veterans, is to say that the darkness does not have to overcome us, right? If there is that light, whether that comes from within, whether that is found in your faith tradition, whether that, wherever it is in that, in your life where you can find light, know that is a way that can help show you the way forward. Yeah.
100.
And for you, that was what that became mixed martial arts, or?
Well, when I found jujitsu, jujitsu was therapy for me. It was not a martial art to me. It was therapy. And I'll describe what I mean. I was in so much pain and sadness and suffering, like in that point in my life, that jujitsu forces you to be in the moment. Imagine like my inner world was complete chaos, sadness, depression, suicidal thoughts, helplessness, hopelessness, etc., all mixed in together. And now try to throw someone through, okay, and you have to be a student in school and you have to do this and you have these expectations, and like you can't even put together rational thoughts at that point. You know what I mean? You're just a damaged person trying to just get from day to day. Well, anyway, in jiu-jitsu, someone is going to hold you down or try to against your will hold you down, strangle you, sweat all over you, bend your limbs in ways that they don't bend, and force you to give up over and over and over again. The reason it's therapy is because in that moment, you cannot be in your head. You have to be fully present to what is taking place exactly in front of you, and you have to fight back at that struggle. And I tell you what, as someone that has been through darkness, the struggle of only having to fight back at a human being right in front of me trying to present me problems is not even a fraction of the difficulty of pain of fighting something like the loss of a loved one or things like, because they're not tangible. You can't grab a hold of them and try to make the problem lesser. You can't try to have a solution in real time that makes the situation not as tough. So what it did is it pulled me out of living in this internal prison of just this constant suffering, and I was in the moment. And by doing that on a regular basis, it's like, that's a game changer. It was a game changer to be back in the present, not the suffering child that was sitting at home crying himself to sleep every night. I was just a man trying to solve a problem in front of me. And as you do that, and as you get out of your mind, I don't know, it's maybe even that tiny little moment of clarity, that tiny moment where you feel like yourself again, was the most invaluable, priceless thing for me. And I became obsessed, because you know what, it's probably an escape. It was like how drugs can be an escape for someone, alcohol, but like drugs and alcohol, these are trap doors. They make your life worse. They make you struggle harder. They give you more obstacles to climb. Jiu-jitsu reintroduced me to the fact that there's still strength within you to make a difference in the moment, but you have to use it. If you don't fight back, imagine if life as a metaphor, someone's going to show up at your door every day and they're going to try to punch you in the face. Every single day, someone's going to knock on your door and they're going to try to hit you. Well, if you do nothing, they're going to come up and hit you every single day. You eventually have to get to the point where you're like, okay, maybe I can't even win this fight, but I'm tired of getting hit every day. I do have strength. I'm going to try to, maybe I'll try to block this shot. Maybe I'll try to slip this punch. You have to find the power to step up to the challenges as they come and not just accept beatings that you don't deserve, because you might have struggled at one point, or maybe you made mistakes in the past, or maybe at once you were a person you weren't proud of. That doesn't mean you can't be someone today that doesn't deserve those beatings, that is worthy of a beautiful life, that has gone through extreme struggle and adversity, that then can help others that are going through struggle try to come out of that. So jiu-jitsu was therapy for me, man. It was an escape, and it became an addiction.
So would you say that the jiu-jitsu stuff really brought perspective to everything that was going on in the past? Like, it gave you kind of a little bit of time to think about that, and then it really brought you forward into what you were going to do further down the road?
I wouldn't say necessarily that it created any perspective of anything yet, but it was taking me out of the suffering for a short period long enough that I could almost like have a sense of who I was again. Like imagine before all the damage, before all the trauma, let's say for the military people, like before all the pain and things that they don't know if they can get through, if they could get back to feeling like themselves again, like the young person with so much hope for the future, belief that things were going to work out okay, like that's the therapy. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, I'm still in here. There's still value. I'm still that young boy that wanted to make this life something, you know? And I don't know, it's just like that little escape, the ability to actually fight back against the suffering, and you get better. The reason you get better, I mean, every day, if you show up to do anything and you keep consistency and you work hard and you train, you're going to improve. And then that reintroduces you to your strengths. And it's showing that you that like when you first start jujitsu, it feels like the most hopeless problem ever. Like you're going to have a kid half your size that's probably 17 if he was trained, absolutely slaughter you to a level that you can't even imagine you can be beaten like that. Like you're like, I am a helpless fish out of water. And then you train and train and train. And next thing you know, start doing a little bit better. You start being able to stop him strangling you a little bit. You start being able to get out of really difficult situations. And it's just engineering your brain to like, even on an incredibly complex problem, maybe there's a way I can solve this. And if you can learn to think like that, almost all problems in life can be solved.
Yeah, and on a personal note, a lot of what you've been talking about has actually been something that I've had to work through myself with injuries and basically being medically discharged out of the military itself. There was a lot of stuff that was out of my control that I had to work through, and there was also injuries that caused lifelong issues. And
One of
so
the things,
that mindset is a very, very important thing in order to work through some of those problems.
One of the things that I think that is brutal for people in a situation like yours is the past. If you compare yourself to where you once were, you're going to constantly be facing a state of depression because you're going to be saying, I should be like this. I want to be like that. And you're living in it's no longer relevant reality. That is where you once were. You need to go from where I am today. What are the things that I can do that will improve the quality of my life if this was my starting point? And that is so difficult because you don't want it to be your starting point. You want to, like, imagine if you were climbing up Mount Everest, you got 7/8 of the way up, and then an avalanche knocked you back to the bottom. If you sit at the bottom and you say, I'm depressed because I was right there and I was so close to what I wanted to be, then every day you're going to sit there depressed. But if you start putting one foot in front of the other, not only can you get back to where you were on Everest, you can get further. And the man that makes the climb a second time has so much more character, resiliency, strength, perspective. You can be a stronger man the second time you attempt a journey than you were even the first time, because maybe you didn't have to work as hard to get to where you were the first time. But if you're going to rebuild to where your quality of life is somewhere you're happy, that is going to take an incredible amount of strength, and it's going to introduce you to that strength.
And then you can start helping others by going, hey, this is a better path than that other one, because I've been down both of them.
100%, man. 100% Treg.
Yeah, no, that's such a key. I've been thinking as I'm listening to your conversation, I've been thinking about, what all that we can do, right, in any given moment is solve the problem that's right in front of us, right? And that rather than let everything else overwhelm us and overwhelm our capacity, to see light, right? That's where we find ourselves in the pit, rather than say wallowing in there and just saying, woe is me. It's like, well, okay, where am I and what can I do, right? And what can I do in this moment, right? I've showed up. I'm here. I'm present. I'm alive. I'm breathing. Right.
And to your point, a lot of people say those things, and you're so right. I mean, you got to learn what is in your control and what's out of your control. And sometimes that's a depressing thing to look at, because sometimes the things you want to change, they're just simply not in your control. Like someone that, your wife doesn't want to be with you anymore, that it can be devastating, because you're like, no, the more you can intertwine your life with the truth of what can I do to make things better? And what is
Mhm.
in my control? That gives you your power back. Because if you want something to change that you have no power over, you are helpless. You just have to sit there and hope that it works out. That is a discouraging feeling. So to speak to your point there, the question is, how do you do that? You have to, in my opinion, you have to write your goals down. You have to get it out of your head. You got to put on paper or somewhere, what does your life look like if you put yourself in order? Where, like, you need to have your goals and a vision. Like every fighter on my team, you got to make a vision board. If you're on my team, you got to be able to lay out, what do you want your personal life to look like? What about your professional life? What about your relationships? What about all of these different things? And then with that point, when you're looking at your life and you have a vision, this gives you a GPS. If me and Treg sat down and we were going to try to map out how to put his life in order to a point where, like, you were feeling happy, you were moving along the journey, you were recognizing your progress, and you felt good about this. First of all, we have to decide, what does that look like? So what I tell everybody to do is, like, you got to make a vision of exactly what you are trying to work for in this life. Like, what do you want yourself to look like as a man or woman? What do you want your relationships to look like? What do you, in as clear detail as humanly possible, almost to the point where you make the vision so clearly that when you can get up in the morning, you can envision why are you willing to suffer? When challenges come, why are you willing to go through these challenges? Well, if you have a beautiful destination in the future that you know you are working to achieve, you're willing to go through more. You're willing to get up out of the bed and say, you know what, I'm not there yet, but that is where I need to get to. And what it also does is, it's like having a GPS. If me and you, Treg, had come up with a game plan for your life, and you described to me exactly what the destination looks like of where you need to get your life to be in order as a person, as a relationship, etc. Every decision you make, then you have a GPS where if you start doing decisions that are taking you off the course, exactly like a GPS would say, nope, rerouting, you're making the wrong turn, go back this direction. Your brain will have its own map. If I know exactly who I want to be in the next couple of years, or whether it's a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, I have to take no effort with the decisions I make to, oh, should I do this or do that? I know what's going to lead me towards my goals because my goals are so clear. People don't take the time to write down, what do you want? What do you want your life to look like? And you don't need visions of grandeur. You don't need material wealth. But you do need to know, where do I need to get that I would feel good about my life, that I would be happy to exist? Make that into a vision, and then it's your GPS, man. Every day when you start it, like, because if you say, I want to lose 60 pounds, well, then when you start eating very poorly or not exercising or doing those things, clearly you know you're getting off the track. Now, then if you lack discipline or consistency, or you have elements of self-sabotage, we can work to combat those. But if you don't first have a vision, where are you going? You're just going,
spinning your wheels.
you're
right?
100%, or you're in a mouse wheel and you're like, oh, like, I'm making progress. Just because time is going by does not mean you are making progress towards the mental and physical health that you're desiring.
Now, James, would you say that the goal doesn't have to be like astronomical, right?
No.
It doesn't have to be super big. It could just be, it's kind of like, if I can use this analogy, right, for those that suffer with addiction, right? I'm just going to be sober for this hour, right? And I'm going to move to the next hour, or the next day, right? And it kind of builds from there. Now, it can be that small, or it could be big.
Dan, do you want to know the secret to running a marathon?
One step at a time.
Foot in front of the other.
Thank you. Yeah.
Listen,
exactly.
like, you're not running a marathon. You're moving your feet in front of one another for 26.2 miles. You don't need this incredible vision. You need to develop consistency. You need to build discipline. Well, you don't do that by being like, I'm just going to become this person, do all these things at once. No, listen, for you, like, for someone in an incredible place of darkness, it might be, can I wake up at the same time each day? Can I get myself into 8 hours of sleep so that my brain has what it needs? It might be that small of a goal. It might be like, you know what? I need to shut my phone off at 11 o'clock at night or put it on airplane mode, and I'm going to wake up every day at 7 a.m. Like, just taking
Yeah.
that much power back in your life might be a tremendous step towards your mental health. If you can't even put the smallest things in order, where is your power coming from? You have to realize you can take charge again. I love that you just broke it down that way. I have a checklist that I keep on my computer of all the things I'm working on in my life. I have 84 items on there right now. Like, and what I do for some of them are like, they're like multiple month goals that I'm working on. Some of them are like daily things. With that being said, every single one of them, I put quotations next to it, and I write the smallest possible step that I could take next or today to move me towards that goal. That might be draft an email to, like, not even send it, not even anything like that, towards a person that I'm going to have to contact, which opens this door to this door to this. Because if you just put a goal and you look at that goal every day and 3 weeks goes by and you go, you have no way to reference, are you making progress? But every single day when I look at any of the things on my list and I go, wow, like, I can make that step in 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, I can get that done. And you do it. Guess what? Now you check that off for the day. You checked off 32 things off your list and you're like, wow. Instead of going, look at all the goals I'm not accomplishing, you just noticed you put one foot in front of the other in 32 different categories, which really, like, your brain literally releases dopamine if it believes you are moving towards a goal that you hold as valuable. So you got to reinforce these systems.
Yeah, amazing. Now, let's shift a little bit, and I want to talk about veterans, because I know that's an element that is near and dear to your heart, and of course you carry this message of perseverance and endurance and to veterans. Can say a little bit about your work there and what got you interested, particularly working with veterans?
My podcast around episode 26 got sponsored by a company called VetLife, which is it's a nonprofit 501c3 that is dedicated here in Michigan to helping veterans get the benefits that they deserve. Super similar to like the TAA programs, except you guys are directly through the Department of Defense helping people transition. Basically, this is a community-driven program that helps veterans. And in the beginning, I know veterans struggle because I have a lot of veterans that are close to me. A lot of veterans are drawn to jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts. So I've met so many over the years. My best friend growing up, who was also my cousin, his name's Shane. He did 2 tours in Iraq and he's a Philadelphia police officer now. So like, I've seen what the military service does to a lot of people. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I believe like it's an incredibly honorable thing to put your life and all of yourself on the line for a cause much greater than you. But anyway, I saw that veterans, man, they are one of the groups that are struggling more than anyone realizes. You look at military people on the surface and you instantly would stereotype them for strength and resiliency and all these things. And it's not that they don't have them, but when you go from an entire routine, brotherhood, camaraderie, all of these parts of your life, all these elements, you get put into this amazing support system where everyone's accountable for each other and there's high levels of responsibility. And like, this guy's got your back and you got their back. That type of responsibility in life gives you the feeling of value, of worth. You feel like you're making a difference. You feel like I am important. Well, now all of a sudden, if you get out of the military and all of that is stripped for you, imagine it's like they become that identity. And then a new chapter opens up and it's like, hey, you're just back into the world and good luck. And that is such a difficult transition that I just became really intrigued with, okay, how do you take someone that is oftentimes deeply passionate about what they're doing and who they are, that is going to have that identity stripped from them? Not stripped, because you're a veteran forever. I mean, you've always done what you've done. It doesn't go away. Right. But in civilian life, wake up when you want to wake up. Do what you want to do. Are you going to keep your job or not? You going to quit? You going to find it? Like, you have endless choices. So how do I help people like that make that transition more effectively using all the tools that I've developed in my life as a professional fighter, as a coach? Like, because I coach multiple, I've trained multiple fighters from the very beginning of their career all the way to the UFC. I've built a ton of people's lives into success. I do motivational speaking, keynote speaking. I do the Reaching Higher program at Brighton High School for kids. I work with the Livingston County Juvenile Court for struggling kids. And the craziest thing, and the reason I'm saying these things, is the similarities are shocking, People that are struggling have so much in common with either loss of identity, they don't have connection to their own power, they don't know how to, create a vision and bring it to life. They don't know how to combat the fight or flight feelings they have. They don't know how to use discipline over motivation. You know what I mean? And so I realized with veterans, I'm like, this is a community that is desperately in need, that there's just not a lot of people that think of it that way. Like if I talk to my regular friends that don't see this, they don't think of the military people as struggling. They think of the military people as strong servants of the country, leaders, etc. So it's like, it's not that they're not, but there's a problem here right below the surface that if we pour a little bit more into, we're going to give back to the people that deserve it.
Yeah, for sure.
So I noticed that on some of the stuff that you had sent us earlier in the week, you have a section on limiting beliefs. For your limiting beliefs, what would you say is probably one of the big ones that you see a lot coming from people that are either transitioning out of the military or they're struggling with any sort of pain or any of the traumatic events that they have going on?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. There's limiting beliefs are everywhere. Limiting beliefs and fears are so intertwined. Like a limiting belief, usually if you dig enough through the surface, there's a fear associated with it that I'll never be understood. I'll never matter like I did when I was in the military. I won't be able to find value in my life outside of my service. Um, I can't put my life in order now. Like I don't know what limiting belief hits people the most. Like that's a really hard question to pinpoint, but it's your fears control you. Most people are completely subjugated and controlled by their fears. And if you dig down deep enough, those fears aren't really rooted in much. And that might go all the way back to my childhood story. Whenever I have like some limiting belief or some reason that I can't make a difference or put my life in order or fix a relationship or, achieve some level of success, whether it's in business or my personal life, whatever it is, dig deep enough into that theory on why can't I? And you'll find there's not many answers. Now there might be, I'm not making the right decisions. I might not be bringing the right people into my life that can support and help me on the journey. I might not be taking care of my physical and mental health enough to be able to operate at the state that I need to fight the problem, like whatever it is. But it's like people are controlled by their fears. And unless you're doing a ton of introspection and a ton of looking back inside, you're not going to identify what the fear is to be able to effectively combat it. So it's like when you have a limiting belief, you first of all have to identify it. And you have to figure out, why do I believe that to be true? Like if someone's an alcoholic, you can't help them until they first say, I'm an alcoholic, I have a problem, and I want to be better. So you have to do the introspection. You have to work through. If you are unhappy with any aspect of your life, no matter how difficult it is to confront that feeling, you first have to start with, what is it I don't like? What is holding me back from changing it? Why haven't I? And then do I need help to do so? Do I need to have like a battle buddy, an accountability partner, whatever it is, you know what I mean? It's not weak to ask for help. It's like, you might need help, you might not. Like I somehow found it within myself, but I don't know if everybody can do that. You have to battle through what is in the way. Imagine you still got your flame in your heart, man. I talk to fighters a lot about that fire in your chest. You got a flame in your heart, but it's probably buried under so much rubble that you don't a lot of people, they don't feel it anymore. They don't they feel like they're too broken down. That rubble that is sitting on top of your fire, if you can burn through that, fuels the fire. For every obstacle that you overcome that you didn't really know if you could get by in your life, you are an entirely new level of person. Imagine it just like that flame. If the flame burnt through the first layer of rubble, it's substantially stronger and more vibrant than it was before. And then eventually, if it battled through all the things that have been stacked on your life, it's like, throw any debris on me, I'm just going to burn through it. But limiting beliefs are everywhere, man. They're in everyone that I talk to. Almost everybody knows what they want to do to fix their life. Then why don't they do it? There's some belief on why they're inadequate, or it's too hard, or why they can't fix it. Or it might be out of their control. And that's back to the beginning of our conversation. And if it's out of your control, as painful as it is, like I know with Michelle and my mother, like it is what it is on some things, man. Like, but can you make the life better? Can you make your life better? Yes. Can you make the lives of all the people that encounter you better if you level up? Yes. Can you make this world a little bit better than it currently is if you put your life in order? Yes. Is that worth it? To me, the answer is yes.
That's awesome. It's a very powerful message, and one of the things that I also picked up on what you said, James, was that one of the limiting beliefs that we might actually have is that we can do it alone, right? That actually might be one of our limiting beliefs, is that that we have to do it all on our own. We have
Who
to.
says you have to do it alone, man?
Exactly.
Most people that are really winning, Dan, that really feel great about their life. First of all, most of the people I know that really have themselves in order come from a lot of darkness, and maybe that's why they have themselves in order, and they are willing to help. These people now, like, I understand what suffering feels like, so I don't want to see anyone else suffer. Why do I have such a calling to try to help people? Because I know what that is like, and I was as close as you can imagine to taking my own life. So if someone could have been there for me to help me out of that, that could have saved my life. Luckily, I went this path. When you've suffered tremendously, you don't want to see others suffer. So the person that's thinking that, like, maybe if you're a military veteran, you don't want to seem weak by asking for help. The people on the other side would want to help you. And if you put your life in order and you got your mental health back and you were a great leader for your family and community and stuff, guess what? When you see that young kid struggling, you would be happy to help them. You would want them to reach out. You wouldn't feel that's not a burden. That's not a difficulty. It's like, absolutely, let's get after this thing.
For sure. For sure. Powerful, powerful message. Speaking of messages, your podcast, The Gray Area. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know it excuse me, it ranges from topics of veterans to fighting to all kinds of things. How'd you start that? Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, so actually it started because of 2020. Like 2020 turned the whole world upside down.
Yeah,
and
it sure did, didn't it?
What a year that was. Holy crap. I ended up on the national Fox News. I ended up on Channel 4, Channel 7, Ann Arbor News, local news, everything, because some of the things that took place during 2020. But anyway, the whole world was like at each other's throats. Everything was upside down. Everyone was angry. Everyone was scared. And there's fear, right? Like take that much fear and pour it across society. Of course, things are going to get insane. So during that point, I was spending a lot of time with a really, really good friend of mine. His name is Juan Perez, and he's 60 years old, grew up in Mexico City, moved to Michigan. We became friends like 14, 15 years ago. Just one of the most amazing human beings I know, with an incredible story, raised a daughter to be a doctor, was an immigrant from Mexico. He raised the daughter and moved here from Mexico City, like just put his life in order. But anyway, we were having a lot of conversation. I was like, Juan, and I was really enjoying our conversation. I was like, Juan, we need to just get people talking together again. And we need to highlight great things in the world. And we need to have like difficult dialogues, but in search of the right answers, in search of the truth. Like that's all the way back to the very beginning of my podcast, not like in a conspiracy theory. Is this right? Is that right? No, like, let's just talk about the truths of life, how to, make things better, how to make a difference. And then let's talk about every topic. I don't care. There's nothing off limit for me. Like if you're one side of the political spectrum and I'm the other side of the political spectrum, I don't care. I'll talk to you as a man first. Like who you are, your integrity level, your family, like all of these characteristics will go so far above where you fall on a political spectrum. It's almost irrelevant to me, because we don't have to agree. We have to be able to have dialogue and figure out what are the right answers. It's not, am I right or are you right? It's what is the right answer. So I just got on the topic of, let's just start talking to each other again. And you know what? I like to talk. I like people. I like life. Like, I think I had such a rubber band effect, like from going extreme depression and, being at the bottom. Now, like I wake up every day like a little kid, man. I'm look at the wall behind me. Like I just try to make life awesome. I every day I value this existence, which is weird to say. Like, if you could take a snapshot of this and take it back to the 17-year-old James, he would have never in a million years believed that that was me at 35 talking, right? Like, I never thought life would be better. And that's a big lesson for people. So, you know, I just was like, let's just start talking to people. You know what? I'll just film some podcasts. We'll put them online. It's made its most traction on YouTube. I think I've got like 100,000 views across all my episodes or something, but it's on like every audio platform. It's just the Gray Area Podcast. And the whole point is like black and white, the gray area. My last name's James Gray. I was like, let's just talk about everything, man. So it's truly been a pleasure. It's been a lot of fun.
So how did you get into the public speaking and going out in front of crowds and basically sharing your story? What brought you to the point where you could feel good sharing your story and sharing your experiences and start reaching out to people?
One of the ways you know that you've healed yourself, that you're in a good mental and physical place, is when you can talk about the traumas and pains and difficulties that you've gone through and you're no longer chained by them. And that was a huge moment for me in my life. When I was a young child, like, you know, like I couldn't talk about my mom really because it would get me super upset. Other kids would be like, oh, your mom's dead. That's how little kids are. And that rocks you as a kid. And like it's very difficult. And then like Michelle passing away, like I could not discuss that for many years because it was just too painful to go back into those memories and moments. When time is a key element, like enough time almost has to go by. But when you put your life in order and you're the product of everything that's ever happened to you, and you can be the product of everything that's ever happened to you. And like, I imagine this, I could be extremely angry, hateful, feel like a victim of life, you know, push every single person away from me, be a terror to be around, be a violent person because I've like, you ever hear the saying, hurt people hurt people? Like that was an old motivational speaker used to write, hurt people, and he would put a comma. He would say, hurt people are the ones that hurt people. It's like, I could have gone that route, but like something in my spirit is like, you're a good human being and you have the duty to uphold what is right. Like you're supposed to do things right. Yeah, you had pain. So does a million other people. You've had trauma and struggle. Guess what? A billion other people have gone through it too. That doesn't let you off the hook from doing what's right and being a good man. So, you know, like, I don't know. It helps you. It helps you heal when you can finally reframe your life to realize that like, you're not a victim of circumstance. And surely you've gone through pain, but you are who you are because of what you've gone through. So if you can really get yourself in order, if I had a time machine, I would go back in time and I would take away a lot of the events that have rocked me. But I tell you what, I would probably be a fraction of the man that I am today. The amount of lives that I can probably make better, like the amount of kids that I work with and mentor and work with in the court system whose lives will be better because of the impact I make on them if I make a difference. It's like, dude, that power is worth something. It's worth something to be able to help others. So it's like you can take your pain, and although there's pain and difficulty, you can turn it into a sum or a product that makes the world a little bit more beautiful, man. You know, so, and then it's at that point, I can talk about it. Is it still painful? Yeah, but it's my story.
Okay. Well,
thank
you very much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And you know what? That should be the ultimate goal. If you can get your life in a position where you look back at your darkest moments and you find out that your strength came from those moments, and now you're able to help people and you're able to inspire and you're able to work with all these veterans that are coming out of the military, and they can see in your eyes that you have been through struggle and pain and difficulty and sadness and depression, and you put yourself in order and you got your life back on track. And then when you look at them in the eyes and you say, and you can do it too, man. You can get back on your feet. Your life can become beautiful again. That right there that's something the world needs more of.
It's such an endearing truth. I was gonna ask you, you know, what your message to veterans and those who struggle with grief and loss and adversity. I mean, what's your message to them? And that's really it. But it's been an amazing journey, and thank you for being with us, James. We're bringing our podcast to a close, but wanted to give you the last word and see if there was anything else that you want to say to our veterans, to our community, to anyone else who's listening in on our podcast today.
I guess, I mean, you encapsulated it well at the end there, but I would just say, even when you can't see a light at the end of the tunnel, that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. That doesn't mean that it's not there, and it doesn't mean that it can't get better. Again, if you would have taken, if you could take a clip of this, if we ever invent time travel, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a clip of this, and I'll probably mess up the whole timeline, but I would go back in time and I would show that young kid, go on, because it does get better. And not only does it get better, it gets so much better. Life becomes beautiful again. You know, you develop super healthy, wonderful relationships again. You can make a difference in countless people's lives that are struggling. And the fight is worth it. That's what I would tell myself. And that's what I would tell anyone that's in the darkness. The darkness doesn't stop when you want it to stop. It doesn't stop because you tell it should stop. It stops when you continue walking, you continue fighting, and you find a way out of that darkness. If you're lost in the woods and you just sit down where you are and you cry every day because you're lost in the woods, you might have to do that for a period of time. Maybe there's some days you can't even walk. Maybe there's some days that you can't even get up off the floor. But the best thing you can do is search for a way out of that forest. You know what I mean? And you know what? If you find someone along the way that can guide you on the journey, or maybe they're just willing to travel with you. Maybe it's someone else that's lost that say, hey, you know what? Let's at least walk together. Let's both try to do better together. There's a way out, even if you don't see it yet. And I think if you can keep that type of faith or belief or whatever it is that pulls you to the future, it's the same as having a vision. If you believe that there is a possibility that your life can get better, then you're more willing to fight. So I just really feel like, you know, and that's all the way back to the element of the truth, man. Because if I say something like, my life can get better, who could ever prove that to not be true? It might be difficult. It might be incredibly complex. I might have to acquire tons of skills that I don't currently have. I might have to make relationships with people that can guide me along the way, but it can get better. There is a way. So I used to, I'll leave you with two things to end this. I used to always say to myself, always, no matter how difficult things were going to be, like, it's possible. And I became obsessed with that saying when I was struggling and I was getting myself back together. It's possible, because I was empowered by that. That doesn't mean that it won't be insanely difficult. That doesn't mean any of those things, but it is possible. And when I would say that, it made me believe that I could make it. And believing that you can make it might be the number one key element in everything. Did you ever hear of the HOPE study that they did with mice? It's kind of a brutal study, but they put a mouse in water and they let it drown, which is like a terrible. I think this was Harvard or Stanford. They let this mouse drown, and I think the mouse swam for about 15 minutes. Then they did the same experiment where they put the mouse in water, they let it drown, or they let it sink right to the moment it was about to die. They pulled it out of the water, they dried it off really quick, and they threw it back in. The mice ended up swimming like 4,000% longer. Like I'm not making that number up. It's like it went from like a few minutes to hours. And they theorized it's because you had given that animal hope. It did not believe that it believed it had already gone through this experience once and it had been saved. It was brought out. It's a study that's like, it shows you the power of having a belief that something can take place and then working for it is, you know, a remarkable power. So I say to myself a lot that it's possible. I feel that my worth, I deserve, you know, a good life. I'm a good man. Why do I deserve to suffer forever? And, you know, I just look to the future. So I hope other people, no matter how dark, you know, their life looks right now, I hope they can look and say, at the end of this podcast, let's say they watch this and they were moved by it, take a piece of paper, put it somewhere where you're going to see it every day and write down, it's possible, blank. And then whatever problem is in your life, it is possible that you can find a solution to that problem. So I really enjoyed being here with you guys today. I hope that I made a difference. And anyone that wants to reach out or, message me, have a conversation, I'm always up for it. I'm a guy that, I'm a completely average dude that, found strength within himself and now tries to give it back to the world, and hopefully others do the same.
Well,
And
thank you
apparently
very
who
much.
also loves Pokemon too. So that's,
Oh yeah.
it's a plus.
And
Yeah,
Bowser up there
yes.
too. If you saw the new Mario movie, there's my dude right there.
Yeah, just an awesome freaking wall right there, man.
Thank you.
Awesome.